Jade Holland released the albums Leather and Les Paul, great title, in 2015 and Dream Wild in 2018. She has a fantastic new song called Oh My Heart, which is my new earworm, possibly hers too. Hi, Jade.
Hi, Sophie. How are we going?
I'm very, very well. Just before we started recording, I said I was listening to your song for about the 50th time, and I am listening to it ahead of release. So it's not even like I could press replay on a streaming service or anything like that, but it is an earworm. And you wrote this earworm with Sinead Burgess. So I'm wondering how that association came to be.
I did. So Sinead and I have actually known each other. I'm going to say this out loud and show my age a little bit, for 20 years. So,
Could have met in kindergarten.
No, a little bit later in life. But we have both been on the country music circuit since I think we were probably about 11 or 12 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we've known each other since then, and we used to sing at country music competitions together. And I actually recall as a kid staying at her parents' house in Beachmere for a number of festivals and things like that. And I was like, we've always kind of played music together. We've written a bunch of songs together. We wrote a bunch of songs together on the Dream Wild album. And I know that she kind of got stuck here during COVID, and we wrote a couple of songs over Zoom when you do the Zoom rights. And I think we all kind of went into that realm. And I said to her, I said, hey, are you around your parents' house anytime soon? This was about 6 months ago. And she said, yeah, I'm going to be up there in a few weeks. And so I met her there and stayed at her parents' house. We had a couple of cheeky drinks, and we just sat down with a guitar, and we were just talking smack, and we were just talking about how unlucky in love I'd been for quite some time, until I recently met my fiance. And she had kind of been in a bit of the same kind of boat, but we met our partner at the same time. And I just think we've always had such a connection and such a friendship where it's like, even if we don't talk for a year, it feels like when you catch up, no time has passed. And we started just kind of playing around, and Sinead came up with this guitar riff that I really dig at the beginning. It's like when you hear that, you just go, that song's playing. And she started playing this thing, and I said, I've got this line that I've written down a few times now, and it's what this was my words, it's what the young people are saying. And I was like, did that just come out of my mouth? What am I, like my dad?
The kids these days.
The kids these days, and I said it's, the line is "Oh my heart," and she was like, oh wow, this is kind of quite relative to, I guess, what we were experiencing or have experienced for the last few years without partners and everything like that. And we just kind of came up with this little ditty, and we weren't really expecting it to do a lot, as far as like, we were like, oh, we'll just write a tune, we'll just have a jam. And we did, and this came out and we were like, holy crap. Can I say that?
Yes. We're both adults. Wow. Yes, there are no children watching this.
Oh, great. And we just were really shocked by it all, and we just went, well, that's a song. And it's a great song, and we both loved it. And exactly, talking about earworms, it was going round in my head the next day and the next day. And I think Sinead messaged me like a week later and was like, man, we've got to record this song. It's driving me crazy. And I was like, yeah, I know. So we did that.
Well, of course, in recording it means it can become an even more cemented earworm. And you recorded it with Sinead. She produced it.
I did, yeah. Do you know what? Sinead did the whole lot. She is an insanely talented person. So Sinead produced it, played all the instruments on the song. She also did the photography and the graphic design for the cover. And she has just got this, she's got an ear for sound, and she is a phenomenal talent in her own right as an artist, and so I always knew that I'd love working with, one of my best friends from my childhood, let alone her saying, she said to me, I'm actually not bad at photography. And I was like, what does that mean? And she said, oh, here's some demos of what I've done. And I was like, right, let's do this. So she did it all, and she's just like a one-man band.
Well, except I suppose now, how are you going to be produced by anyone else? You've had this experience of everything being wrapped up in the one person.
Absolutely. You know what? I did say to her, I know she is moving back over to Nashville. So, if she's got enough time while she's here, I said, hey, let's sit down and do this album, because I've got big dreams and I've got heaps of songs, during COVID, I just sat there writing my butt off, and I've got so much I want to get out there and say. And I just thought, well, let's do this. Maybe we can come up with the album, and if she's got time, she'll, hopefully produce the whole lot for me, because I just love what she did with the song. She's just, I think because we know each other on a personal level, she gets me as an artist. And you could feel that in the studio. Yeah, it was really, really nice.
Yeah, there's a real lightness to your vocals and a sense of ease, I guess, in the song. And it's always hard to describe these things because it's music and it's impossible to fully describe. But I think that's part of why it's an earworm. It's just it's so pleasant to listen to, and that makes it sound like mildly pejorative. Not at all. It's pleasant, and it's like, it's a great song.
There is a sense of ease, and and I could feel that in the studio. It's funny. I've worked with a whole bunch of people, and I love them all equally. But I just found with Sinead, like, we could have that laugh and there wasn't a pressure or anything there. As well, we were working with Matt Smith, Caitlin Shadbolt's partner, and he's great. Like, we all were just, pretty much laughing the whole time, and it was just really comfortable. It's such a vibe with those two in the studio. So I really enjoyed it.
I guess also for you working with Sinead, producing you didn't have to introduce her to your voice or how you work. She knew all of that. So I imagine that you actually could get into the process quite quickly.
Yeah, we did actually. And as well, so Sinead and I both sang some backing vocals and some chorus parts on the song. And so, I think it was just kind of, she really kind of went, right, I know what parts I really want to dig in deep for, and what parts I know you're just going to do with, like that. And so I was like, oh wow, okay, I'm glad you know this. I was prepped and ready. I've got my my words written down. I've written down all my breaths and stuff like that, because there's some sections in there where it's hard to take a breath. And she was like, no, we're going to do it this way. And I was like, okay then. She just puts me in my place. And our ideas, we just kind of met each other in the middle. It was a really cool experience. So I'm hoping that we can, get together and do it again. And sneakily enough, we might actually have one extra song already pre-recorded coming up soon.
Oh, that's good.
Just between you and me. So
but it's interesting because you said you wrote that song in person, and before that you've been doing some Zoom co-writes. I'm wondering how you found the Zoom co-writing process, because I imagine there's can be a slight time delay, and if you're singing and playing, that can be a little tricky.
Absolutely. You know what, it was a cool experience in a sense, because I know we were all experiencing the same thing. So, which is weird to think that, Australia and Nashville or wherever were locked down at the same time. You never, again, will we ever see that? I don't think, touch wood.
Yeah.
But it was an experience, and I didn't mind it. I did feel that, me personally, I spoke to so many people on Zoom during COVID because I felt so disconnected from the world. So I was Zooming all my friends pretty much on a daily basis. And so it was nice to kind of feel that connection, I guess, even if it wasn't in person or having a drink with your friend or something. We were, me and my girlfriends were sitting on Zoom with a wine and stuff. So writing it over Zoom was, I guess, my little outlet or my way of connecting with people in the real world, aside from my parents that I was stuck in my house with during lockdown. I was like, thanks, I've had enough of you guys. I'm going outside to Zoom my friends.
Well, and it was also a way of staying creative, because I would imagine that motivation was hard a lot of the time, as it was for many people. But, some people found it quite a fertile creative period, but still, I think because every day was the same, would have been hard to get that momentum to be creative.
Oh, absolutely. I found myself, I think I did what the stereotypical musician did. Jumped online, ordered a whole heap of, guitar pedals and things like that I didn't need, that I knew I was never going to open. I've still got them in the boxes, for crying out loud, And it was hard to find that motivation, because I personally fell into a pattern of, well, I'm going to be doing the same thing again tomorrow, so it doesn't matter if I don't get it done today. And I had a goal list. I set myself a giant goal list, which was quite unrealistic, but I felt like I needed something to just keep me going a little bit, or, you know, to kick myself in the butt and go, hey mate, you've got work to do, you know. I found the songwriting part came easy to me because I was like, I could write about this. I could write about this. There's so many ideas that I was having for some unknown reason. Maybe I was watching a lot of rubbish, I'm not sure. And I was just having these ideas. I was like, yes, that's a great line for a song, you know. But as well, I think, yeah, I did get kind of bogged down, and after a while it became quite monotonous trying to motivate yourself to do this to-do list. I am glad I did do probably half of it. I do think it was quite an unrealistic list. You know, I was like, plan your next 10 years and have it down to the year and down to the 6 months. And I was like, who's gonna do that? And
it was a nice idea, you know.
It was a good thought, you know. But it was a difficult thing. But, you know, I think I did try to do one thing at the minimum per day to just go, okay, you tick one thing off. That'll do.
And you did release some other music, because you released Summertime, Sunshine and You earlier this year, and you also released Do It Right in 2020. And I'm interested in the 3 songs. Let's put those 3 together, because they have a more pop sound than your albums have had. There was some country pop on those albums, but they certainly were rockier sounding than these 3 songs have been. So I'm wondering whether actually the pandemic kind of led you towards that more pop theme, because it's a little more upbeat.
I think it kind of did, to be honest. I think because I was no longer touring the Dream Wild album, and I'd kind of not left it. I don't think you ever leave an album, but I'd kind of, you know, walked past it, and I was like, well, I know you're still there, you know, we're still going to play your songs and everything like that. But I think I tried to do some growing as an artist while I was in COVID. You know, like I said, I was talking to anyone and I was talking to everyone. I was going to say everything. I wasn't talking to the bookshelf, but well, I hope not. But you know, I was talking to everyone, and I think I was kind of listening to a whole array of music. I remember actually talking to Sinead, and she said, well, what are you listening to at the moment? And I was throwing some crazy jams at her. You know, I was like, well, this week I listened to the whole, you know, Led Zeppelin greatest hits. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I grew up on that. So I just thought I'd revisit it, you know, and here was my dad and I in the backyard during COVID, during lockdown, just listening, you know, having a rock out, like air guitar rock out to Led Zeppelin and ZZ Top and stuff like that. And we were just having a bit of a jam. And I think, by jam, I say air guitar jam, because my dad is not musical at all. I love him to death, but he plays a wicked air guitar. Like, you've got to see it. And so I think I just did a lot of kind of researching and listening to music and seeing, you know, what maybe I might be missing, because I had been touring full time, and I do find it hard to be creative when I'm on the road, because I'm in such of a structure of like, right, got to get to the next venue, set up, sound check, everything, go get glammed up, get on stage, play, get off stage, go back to the venue, go back to your room, and then get ready for the next one. You know, it is such a routine that I do find it hard to be creative when I'm on the road. So I think I just let it all out.
Yeah. And you were very productive. And so you mentioned listening to Led Zeppelin in your childhood, but then you'd also mentioned being on the country circuit from around the age of 11. So at what point did country music, well, let's start with, when did you start playing music? Because if you were on the circuit by 11, clearly you were playing an instrument and singing well before that.
Actually, I wasn't. So this is my mum is probably the most blunt and brutally honest person I know, which I love, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. So as a kid, I was like 11 years old. My mum and dad took me to the local RSL in Mareeba, I think it was. And my friend Chandelle Tassoni was getting up and playing at the open mic night. And I was like, I sat there, and she hopped up on stage, and she's got a guitar and she sings. I couldn't even tell you what it was. And I literally looked at her and I went, Mum, I want to do that. And my mum, straight out, without even thinking, she went, I don't think you can sing. And I was like, well, we got to figure it out, because I want to do that. And I kept pointing at Chandelle, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And Mum's like, all right, well, I don't know how we do this. And we lived an hour away from anyone. So we lived in the bush on a little 5 acres in Kuranda. So it was hard because there was no singing teachers around, no guitar teachers. So we had like a friend of a friend. She, numbered my fingers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and she drew the chords on a piece of paper for me so I could learn guitar by myself. And I used to practice with the radio. So I taught myself to sing. And I would just sit there and practice bashing out on the guitar, trying to figure out the chords and trying to listen to it by ear and pick it up. So that's how I started. And I was 11. So, but from there, mum and I, and dad, we kind of went, well, where am I going to sing if I'm, learning to sing? Where do you sing? And it's not quite the done thing still to go into a pub as an 11-year-old and rock out on stage. So mum and dad were like, well, we're not taking you to the pub to play. So I played at open mic nights. And also then I started on the country music circuit. So all the talent quests across Queensland and New South Wales and things like that, heading down to Tamworth. So we did that basically. I think my parents put 250,000 kilometers on a brand new car in 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was just driving from Coranda all the way down to Tamworth and out west to Isa and Longreach and then heading back up and all of the festivals in between. You name it, we did it. And that's how I kind of got started on the road, I guess.
So given that you'd pointed at your friend and said, I want to do that, once you actually were doing it, was it as good as you imagined?
Yeah. Oh, I kid you not. When the first time I hopped on stage, at that open mic night was about 3 weeks after I saw Shendell do it. And I was like, yes, that's going to be me. And I'm not kidding when I say this, Sophie, I was terrible. I was terrible. I was so nervous. I think my parents were so nervous. Like mum's like, okay, well, your hair's done and you look all right. And, you go up there and sing. And my parents are not musical at all. Like the most musical person in my family is my nan. And she can hear perfect pitch.
Right.
And she was asked to teach that at the Conservatorium of Music, like 40 something years ago. And it's not something you can teach. So she couldn't quite, she was like, well, doesn't sing, but she can hear. So when I was a kid, she used to sit down with the guitar on her lap and she would sit there and pick out, all the notes for the song I'd be singing. And just because she can hear it, or she'd say, oh, that note's not quite right. You've got to go up a little bit. And then she'd be like, bam, that's the note. So I jumped on stage at 11. I'm walking up to the stage. I had a guitar. I was playing it terribly. So they actually said, oh, how about we just, we'll take the guitar off you. So they took my guitar down and put it on a stand. And then I was holding the microphone and I was so nervous. I almost chipped my front tooth. So they put it in the stand for me. And I was like, oh, thank you. And I was crying. It was terrible. I was singing The Captain terribly by Casey Chambers. It was horrendous. And I pray she never, ever sees that recording because I'm pretty sure I've burnt all the copies by now. But I hopped off stage and I walked up to mum and dad who were just in disbelief at how terrible I really was. And I walked up to them and I said, oh my God, I want to do that again. And they were like, well, we're going to need to practice.
And I've got to say, The Captain is quite a serious song for an 11-year-old.
Yeah, I think, that was my first ever country album as well, because I wasn't raised on country. So when I said I'm going to sing country music, mum and dad were like, well, what's that? I said, well, we better figure it out. I'm not too sure myself.
It's like you had a sense of destiny. It's like, that's the path for me.
Yeah, that was it. It was just like something told me, you're going to sing country music. And by the way, you might suck now, but you're going to be all right later on.
More than all right, in fact. And now you mentioned driving around Queensland when you were a child, but you've also done quite a bit of touring around Queensland as an adult. In fact, you're about to do some more because you've got some dates announced. So how many dates have you got coming up?
Look, at the moment, I think we've announced about 12 or 13 dates, but we're just going to, instead of changing the tour every time we put out a new song, I said to my manager, I said, do you know what? I love Oh My Heart so much. I just want to tour Oh My Heart next year. We will be releasing singles in between that as well, but we're not going to change the name of the tour. It's going to be the Oh My Heart tour for the whole year. So currently we've got 12 dates out, starting this Saturday at the Exchange Hotel in Kilcoy, and then Sunday with one of my idols, Wendy Matthews, at the Gem Hotel, which I'm going to keep it together, and I will cry quietly backstage with joy. But yeah, so I'm really excited to be hitting the road and to be promoting like a new single and everything like that. It's, I know I only did it probably like 8-9 months ago, but I just love it, and I just love getting out there and playing new tunes for people. And I've even, thrown in a few songs that I wrote during COVID that no one's heard before, just because I think people need to hear them, and then they can gauge and tell me what they think. And if maybe it needs to be recorded, and they can let me know.
Well, and also you did mention that perhaps those songs might be recorded with Sinead. So it is a good way to road test them before you get into the studio.
100%. And then I know people's honest feedback.
Yeah. So will that road tripping take you to Tamworth in January?
Unfortunately not. No, we already had some offers for, so I think we've got a show booked in Caboolture. So unfortunately, I'm going to miss out on Tamworth this year, but I said to my management team, do not book anything for January 2024. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I can't miss it again. I've been 14 years in a row from when I was a kid, and I've probably missed maybe the last 2 or 3 years. Well, I think we all missed a few of them. So I don't feel so out of whack, but I have missed a few, which is really devastating. So I need to get back there.
And one other thing I wanted to ask you about is that when you released the song Do It Right in 2020, it was associated with, as far as I know, you being an ambassador for the Mental Awareness Foundation. So how did that come about?
So it was that was the first song I released with the Mental Awareness Foundation, and they asked me at the beginning of 2020, I think it was just prior to COVID happening, and so they had asked me if I wanted to come on board with them and be an ambassador, and I truly believe, in mental wellness and trying to help people, talk about it, or even just to ask somebody how their day's going or if they're okay. I'm a big advocate for mental health. So I immediately said yes, which I'm really blessed they asked me, because I've now been on board with them for almost 3 years, and coming back next year, which is incredibly, it's a huge honor, because, I didn't think that they would. Not that I didn't think they would ask me back, but I thought that they would, want somebody else in the hot seat, I guess, so to speak. So to be asked back 3 years in a row is really amazing. And with the Do It Right single, I was already putting out that song, and they wanted to support it. And so that was a whirlwind journey, because we got to do that tour as well, the Resilience tour, the first one. And then from that, they said, well, how about, are you releasing anything else that might tie into, mental health? And I said, well, actually, I've written a song for you guys. I don't know if you'll like it or not, but, I played it for them. I played Fight for It. And I wrote that with Bryce Sainty and Sinead as well. And they loved it. They just absolutely fell to pieces. And for me, I think it was a big step writing a song for a mental health organization, because I didn't want to do it an injustice. I think it needs a huge level of respect there to make sure it's correct and not portraying anything in the wrong light or the wrong way. So it took us a few hours to really dig deep. But the beautiful thing is that I think, being musicians, and at the time that we were writing Fight for It, we were all going through our own mental health struggle with COVID. Mm-hmm. So it kind of took on, I guess, a deeper level or a deeper role for each of us, because we were all kind of dealing with this, will we ever get back out on the road? Will we ever go and tour again? Will we ever record music in a studio again? Who knows? Being an ambassador for the Mental Awareness Foundation has just been life-changing, and to have, people come up to me now after releasing both of those songs, and them saying to me, your music has changed my life, is just, I still pinch myself. That's an incredible thing. I get goosebumps every time I talk about it, because it just blows my mind that I can help somebody or inspire somebody. So. Yeah.
And I meant to say fight for it because I had my
that's
notes
okay.
down wrongly, but there you go. It turned out that both do it right.
They both were, yeah.
There you go. As soon as I asked the question, I thought, oh no, I've got the wrong song there.
They both were. They were both supported by them. So I'm just really blessed that, that they love my music.
Yeah. Well, I am sure many people will love your new song once it's out, because by the time this interview is up, you'll be on the road. People can go to your website. I'm looking forward to perhaps that secret song you also recorded with Jade coming out. And yes. Jade, it was a great pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sophie. Thanks for having me.